don't think that was terribly and terribly interesting 15 minutes or whatever it was. Okay, I mean, yeah, I think we got on
right
to...
now. We were on issue. Right, we were moving to issue 2. The issue 2 is, you said people are judged on their actions, and I think that is inaccurate. I think people are judged on what their actions are perceived to be. You might recall, Thunderfoot, that you made reference to a sleeping giant, quoting Yamamoto. Now, I happen to recognise the reference. I thought fair enough, but some people got the wrong end of the stick, and they thought that you were threatening genocide, which, obviously you weren't. The point there is you weren't being judged on your actions, but what your actions were perceived to be. Now, the same thing happens with the Cordoba Initiative. You had the people. You're saying that people were judging their actions to be jerky. Well, no, that's not correct, because they never looked at their actions. They looked at what the perceptions of the actions were. Now, you have the thing about 9/11, that it was going to be opening on September the 11th, which was a lie, that it was being set up directly in relation to September the 11th, which was a lie, and so on and so forth. The entire, and of course the name, Cordoba House, but apparently this was some feature of Islamic triumphalism. So, I mean, all of those are lies that were spread, or, if you're being charitable, misunderstandings or misinterpretations. So, to say that the Cordoba Initiative, and in particular Park 51, are being judged on their actions, I think is simply wrong. I mean, do you think, Thunderfoot, that the media coverage of Park 51 was fair in the United States?
No.
How so?
I think that people form their opinions within societies on crushingly small numbers of pieces of information. And, if I wanted to, there is a significant portion who really did just see it as the people who flew planes into New York were undoubtedly Muslims, undoubtedly quasi-religiously motivated, in that doubtless the last words on their mouths were something along the lines of Allah Akbar. That, I think, is the prime reason why there was this objection. You said that it's not a mosque. How many people can worship in this centre? I mean, I don't really see saying that it's not a mosque is actually terribly accurate, in that, and once you get up to the point where it's a building where thousands of people can worship, or not thousands, certainly hundreds, on that sort of order of magnitude, I think it's rather redundant to call that not a mosque.
I didn't realise that University College London was a mosque.
No, but then again, that's like saying, what is the... so are you saying that there is not a mosque within this social centre?
No, I'm saying that there is a mosque within the centre. Anyway...
So there is a mosque. So if you were to describe it as a mosque, that would be accurate.
No, well, if you describe, I don't know, the lid of this bottle as, if you describe all of this bottle as the lid of the bottle, yes, that's accurate. There is a mosque as part of it. It's trying to do other things as well.
Right.
Now, this is somewhat of a semantic debate.
No, it's not. No, it's not. You said it is not a mosque, and there is a mosque there.
Yes, okay, Thunderfoot, can you, right, this is my house, yeah, the house where I live. This room is the office, okay, we call this room the office.
Yes.
Do you understand that not all of this house is the office?
Yes, but do you understand that your office, do you understand that your office is within your house? Is there an office within your house? The answer is yes. The question is there a mosque
within the house?
there?
It's not the totality of the house. There are things in my house apart from my office.
I agree.
The same with Park 51.
I
there
agree.
Are parts of Park 51 apart from the mosque bit. There's
But,
also going to be an interfaith prayer centre, so you're going to have Jews and Christians praying there as well.
okay.
So no, the entirety of the building is not a mosque.
I agree. But there is a mosque in the building.
Yes.
Right, so we're in agreement that there is a mosque, and to say that that there isn't a mosque there would be disingenuous.
Yes, and equally to say that all of it is a mosque is disingenuous.
Oh, well, I never said that though, did I?
Yes, you called it the Ground Zero Mosque.
And yes, you'll notice that there were air quotes around it.
No, you actually, that was from, let me see, your video, Tolerance and the Ground Zero Mosque. Tolerance in quotes and in the Ground Zero Mosque was in quotes. But
Bravo.
you made no reference to that in the video when you were referring to it as the Ground Zero Mosque. Anyway,
having said that, let me just make a point there. I mean, maybe this doesn't come across terribly well on audio, and maybe this is something that I could be criticised for. But there were actually, when I was recording that, there were air quotes. Now, obviously, the pace that it said, that might not come across terribly well, but I knew full well.
Yes, but
I don't think
this is the same thing. This is the point I'm making. People aren't judged on their actions, but what their actions are perceived to be.
I agree completely.
Right. So would you like to withdraw the point from your video that the promoters of Park 51 aren't being judged on their actions, but on what their actions are perceived to be?
Yeah, but that's not something that I said. It's a straw man.
Yes, it is. Yeah, yes, it is. That is what you said in your first video.
What was actually said was people will. Okay, no, in that sense, that is actually grammatically correct, right?
Right. Okay.
However, let me finish it. In that, but okay. So likewise, then, if you're going to go down that route, the comparison is correct, but it is almost a point of pedantry saying that they're based on their actions. On what other basis, other than their actions, could you establish their intent?
Well, the point I'm making is that, particularly in the US, but not just the US, I think it's true across the industrial democracies, we have a problem with the media, in that there's a tendency for people to agree with each other too much, to only give a certain part of what was going on. And so it's actually quite hard to find out what's actually happened, what the actions actually are, because of the way that they are explained through the media, because they are mediated. I think you fed into that, Thunderfoot, by...
But what, and what... Sorry, keep going.
By the way you expressed yourself. Now, let me ask a question.
Let me hold you to the question here. On what other basis, other than actions, can you establish intent?
Oh, reliably, you mean?
Well, no, this is how people form their opinions. It is based on people's actions, they extrapolate intent.
No. Now, if you're going to make have solid opinions, good opinions, yes, you have to look at what's actually going on and what the actual facts are. That's why I've got, part of my office, what they do is actually look for primary sources into what's going on, because just the newspapers or just the broadcast media aren't sufficient to do that. Okay, so to get a good opinion, yes, you do need to base your opinions on what somebody's actions actually are. However, that's not what people do. People generally, because they don't have a staff working for them, go to the newspapers, go to the radio news, go to the television news, go to the internet, even go to YouTube to find out what's going on. So, yes, the correct way of doing it would be to judge their actions. That's actually quite difficult to do, and so people do it on what their actions are reported to be, and they hope, I assume, that the reportage they're getting is accurate. And that's the difference here. In the same way that people misunderstood your quote about a sleeping giant, people have misunderstood what's going on with Cordoba House. I'll come later to what the aims of Cordoba House are, but they have been portrayed as the, Cordoba House has been portrayed as the glorious 19 Memorial Mosque.
And just out of interest, Landon, why do you think that that actually gains traction in America? I mean, if your argument is this devastatingly accurate, why doesn't it gain traction? I mean, it is a point of public perception, but why do you think that the argument that you are making is not dominant?
I'm not sure this is the time and the place for a sociological analysis of...
That's exactly what you were just talking about.
But I was merely pointing out the fact that it occurs. What I would tend to say, though, and I mean, I find it slightly difficult to comment about the US media because I've never worked with it. In the UK media, what you see on a lot of stories is journalists will effectively agree a line between them. There is a desire to make sure that no one journalist is left out.
London, maybe we can just cut to the chase here, and that, do you think that if 9/11 hadn't happened, that anyone would give a shit about this?
That's actually a really interesting question. It would be different. I mean, what this comes down to is you've got the rise of the Tea Party. I regard the Tea Party as something like a return of the Know-Nothings. I mean, I don't know if you'd accept the comparison with the Know-Nothings. That's sort of what I see it as. Now, the question I'm not sure about is, would the Tea Party have arrived regardless of 9/11? And I don't know that I can answer that question.
That wasn't the question that I was asking.
Sorry?
The question was, without 9/11, do you think that anyone would give a shit about the 9/11 mask, so to speak? Yeah, air quotes.
Well, you know, okay, it might not have been the 9/11 mosque.
The Ground Zero, sorry.
It's actually Park 51. It might have been an Islamic centre being built near the White House or something like that. Well, you know, obviously if 9/11 hadn't happened, people wouldn't be concerned about that area of Manhattan.
Yeah.
Whether you would have seen the rise in nativism through the Tea Party that allows narratives like this to do well is a different thing.
Yeah. But 9/11 was basically what this is all about. 9/11 was the key thing that changed. If you like, this is blowback for 9/11.
Well, this is the thing. I'm not entirely sure about that.
You've just said that it would be if there wasn't 9/11 that no one would care. This is, if you like, blowback for 9/11. I don't see how that's not fairly obvious.
Because right, I mean, if 9/11 hadn't happened, obviously the particular instance, you know, it wouldn't have been about building a mosque in Manhattan. It might have been about a different issue. Okay, I'm not sure about this. This is something I'm not sure about, and I'm just, you know, throwing out there as an idea. What I don't know is whether the current rise in nativism that we see in the Tea Party would have happened anyway, even if 9/11 hadn't happened.
Another issue, I think, unless that is actually relevant. I mean, I don't get me started on the Tea Party, but I don't think that's relevant for this discussion, you know.
It's completely relevant because it's the Tea Party. People like, oh God, what's the name? The name that lady who does the Stop the Islamification of America. Can't remember her name.
No, mate.
Who's hooked in with the Tea Party.
I don't watch much of this media, you understand.
Oh, you should. It's terribly informative. There's that brilliant quote from Aneurin Bevan. I read the newspapers avidly. They're my only source of continuous fiction.
Nice quote.
Geller, Pamela Geller, thank you, Jake 220, and Ethical Slut. Now, it is, right, I think you've accepted, I think, that people are being judged, you know, the promoters of Park 51 and so on, are being judged on their perceived actions rather than their actions. Why is it that...
Actually, no, I would say that people are not making... Right, basically, this is, like I say, it's blowback for 9/11. If 9/11 hadn't happened, there wouldn't be this cohesive body of distrust against Islam. And
Yeah,
in that sense,
why does that exist?
let me finish. In that sense,
distrust exists.
In that
part
sense,
of it is understandable, but part of it is because you've got nativist groups like the Tea Party whipping it up.
they have inherited, if you like, the guilt for 9/11.
Okay, would you join with me in saying that that is completely wrong and that they shouldn't have inherited that?
It would be an oversimplification, yeah. I mean, in other words, there is a cohesive theme between they are building an Islamic mosque and the people who blew up the World Trade Center were Muslims, right? To say there is
let me ask a specific question. Do you think the average Muslim on the street in wherever it is in the United States of America has any responsibility whatsoever for 9/11?
This is where to say zero would be incorrect. To say that they are solely responsible would be incorrect. When you are dealing with cohesive populations, you can't disentangle the two completely. In other words, would you say that the people who are Catholics are in part guilty for the abuses of the Catholic Church?
No.
Would you say that if you are a part of a democracy that goes to war, that you are in part responsible for the actions of that democracy?
No.
I would disagree with you. I think that is not taking responsibility for your own actions. In other words, to say that you are not in part responsible for the government that was elected within your country, I think is not right. That you don't bear sole responsibility, but you do bear some responsibility.
Well, we're going to have to agree to disagree on that one. I think that's going to be a fundamental one. Let's move on to your Crusader House analogy.
Yes.
Do you stand by your analogy between Cordoba House and Crusader House?
I would say yes. I would say it's a perfect analogy, nearly perfect.
Okay, why do you think it's nearly perfect and not perfect?
Right. So let's actually see if we can actually draw some of this. So what did you have with 9/11? Right. You had an icon of America, correct? That was destroyed by religious fundamentalists. And then there, at some later point, another part of that same religion, not the people who blew it up, but another part of the same religion actually come along and want to build something to expand their religion with a name that could be misinterpreted. Would you agree with that?
No.
Which parts do you disagree with?
Right. Are you familiar with the RAND Corporation?
I've heard of it.
Okay, RAND Corporation is research and development. It's the US Department of Defense's own private, well, not private because they'll do work for anyone, but it was set up as the Department of Defense's own think tank. They're a pretty impressive bunch. They were going to launch a network of moderate Muslims opposed. In fact, if you give me a moment.
Landon, is this relevant? What is actually wrong with this analogy?
Right, if you listen to me, you might find out. They were going to launch a network of moderate Muslims opposed to the extreme Salafists. This is from a document called Building Moderate Muslim Networks. Do you know where they were going to launch that network, Thunderfoot?
No.
Cordoba.
And why is this relevant to my analogy of Crusader House?
Because you are saying that Crusader House is the equivalent of Cordoba House. It is not. Cordoba, I've been there on more than one occasion.
I believe that we are about to establish that that you are no more impervious to the prejudices that you blame the Tea Party of. Why do you think that Crusader House is an offensive name?
Why do I think that
Crusader House would be an offensive name?
Is an offensive name?
Yes. Why do you think this?
Because because of the Crusades.
So you have put your presumption right? This could have been a perfectly benign sect where crusade just means an inner struggle, the desire for peace, the desire for unity.
Except that's not what people understand crusade to mean.
And that's not what people thought Cordoba meant.
Yeah, okay, the point I'm making
is the analogy is correct.
They were going to call it, they took a perfectly reasonable name for it, based on what most people, including the United States Department of Defense, understood Cordoba to mean, as the three Abrahamic religions getting together and all being lovely together. Okay, so that is, that is why they were going to go for Cordoba. That is what they thought everybody would interpret it as.
Yes, and they were wrong, weren't they? And they were wrong, weren't they?
Could you let me finish, please?
Please.
When you have Crusader House, which has a much more concrete meaning to it, because you have the Crusades.
Now, because of your prejudices on what you thought that it meant, DLandoncole.
Would you let me finish, please, Thunderf00t?
Yeah.
With Cordoba, it had this other name, this other meaning grafted onto it. Now that came out of the same Tea Party movement that we were discussing. Nobody had previously objected to this when when it was the Cordoba Initiative and so on. When Ralph was being sent out by President George W. Bush or President Obama, when people knew he was working with the Cordoba Initiative. So it was only when the mosque came up that suddenly people came up with the idea that Cordoba is somehow offensive. So that, there is a fundamental difference there. Okay?
No, there isn't.
Okay. So
no, there isn't a fundamental difference. It's you say that the name Cordoba was chosen for some very good reasons, but evidently it wasn't received in the actual way that it was intentioned to be received. So all you're basically saying is the choice of name was poor, right? Just like the name Crusader would be a poor choice.
Okay, let me, on that, the point is it was deliberately made to be something that it wasn't intended to be. And then...
And it was credibly done.
And by the time you'd made your video, had decided to change the name of it to Park 51 because they took on board the criticisms that were made by various people. Now, do you understand that people deliberately changing the name, taking a particular meaning of something, spreading it through the media, and then not recognizing that the promoting organisation changed the name of it is deeply, deeply unfair to the promoting organisation?
But it also shows their lack of insight.
Answer the question, yes or no.
Sorry?
I'm sorry, Thunderf00t, we're being evasive.
No.
I'm sorry, my temper. Would you agree with the statement I just made or not?
That it was spun in the media? Yeah, but it was convincingly spun in the media, and a competent person would have chosen a name that couldn't have been that couldn't have been spun in the media. Right. I mean, all you're basically saying is the choice of name was bad.
Because you remember, Cordoba wasn't just pulled out of nowhere. This was a name that had been doing the rounds anyway. Saying, this is, a decent name to use. Yeah, this is something that RAND and the Department of Defense had said, yeah, actually, we think this is an appropriate name to use. Having seen that, the Cordoba
irrelevant.
Initiative, already using the name without any problem, said, well, we'll call it Cordoba House, and we will explain why we're calling it Cordoba House. And then a group that is deliberately opposed to not just the Cordoba Initiative, but Muslims in general, by which I mean the extreme end of the Tea Party, turn that into something it was never meant to be.
Was this foreseeable, Landon? Was that foreseeable?
No.
Yes, it was.
Of Defense.
Look, if it happened, it was foreseeable.
Already used it. Do you think that a different standard should be applied? I mean, do you think that the RAND Corporation were wrong to want to use Cordoba as a symbol for combating extreme Islam?
Based on the outcome, evidently so.
But the outcome was afterwards. RAND published this paper a couple of years ago, and there were, people didn't have a problem with it.
Yeah.
And it's when the Muslims start doing it that they have a problem with it.
Look, we are talking about public perception, and in terms of the outcome, the whatever Park 51 was a disaster, yeah.
Okay, the reason it was a disaster, Thunderfoot.
But it was a disaster.
Yeah, it was a disaster. They screwed up. They screwed up because they didn't take into account the fact that there were various sections of the media that were going to deliberately spin anything that they said to make them look bad, and weren't going to give them a fair crack of the whip. They were going to exploit it. And frankly, sir, you fed into that because it had already been renamed Park 51 in response to the criticisms that had been raised when you called it a house and made your
Landon,
Crusader house.
Landon, are you in favour of building more mosques?
Am I in favour of building more mosques?
Yeah.
I'm in favour of private property. I think people should be able to do what they want.
That's evading the question, Landon.
I don't care.
Well, maybe if you don't care, then why are you arguing with me over this?
Do you really want me to answer that, Thunderfoot?
No, if you don't care, why are you arguing? Look, evidently you do care, and evidently you think that they should be able to build this, right?
Yeah.
Now, I'm for the building of mosques in the same way that I'm for the building of creation museums. Right? That's as simply as I can say it. Now, in that light, would you actually advocate building more mosques? In other words, do you actually favour the spread of Islam or the propagation of Islam? Do you think that it actually enriches the world? Cost-benefit analysis. Simple, okay, coarse-grained approach.
Right. In general terms, no, I don't. You know, as I said, as we discussed at the beginning, I'm not in favour of religion. I think ceteris paribus would be better if there was no religion. But if we look at something like Park 51, what they're doing is encouraging the moderate end of Islam, which is something I would support as well, and opposing the Salafist end, Wahhabist end of Islam, which is another thing that, you know, I think is a good thing to do. So now, if I had my ideal world, yeah, that would be lovely. But that's not the options that are being given to us. We have to deal with the fact that Islam exists, and it isn't going to be going away in the near future.
I disagree. So, not in the near future, but if you'll indulge me to interject a point here, religions come and go. And I think the only way that you can make religions come and go, or actually have an effect on it, is to apply social pressure to them. Would you agree with that?
I think that, no, well, yes and no. I think that's part of it, but I think there's also economic factors at work as well. I mean, you could say, why is religion less popular in northwestern Europe? Well, I mean, yeah, part of it is the reason that Protestantism became popular at the time of the Reformation. It sort of fitted into the narrative that people were trying to develop for, you know, they wanted a direct access to God. You know, these were the bourgeois classes who were becoming, well, as the French would call it earlier on, nobles of the robe. And so you've got, you know, something similar. It's not just social pressure. Part of the reason people aren't religious in northwestern Europe now, generally, and other parts of Europe, but, you know,
London. This is
you know, it's not. You know, it's not needed. There's, you know, as Halcyon says, there's many factors to the human condition.
Yes, but we need to actually, if you want to actually diminish the amount of religion in the world, you have to establish what those factors are and try and apply social pressure to them, correct?
Right. Yes, but you've got to look at what all of the factors are, and that this isn't a zero-sum game. You may not actually have the option at the moment of just reducing the amount of Islam in the world. It may be that you have to, by trying to do that, by opposing, as you have done, the Park 51 mosque, you are actually encouraging the extremists. You are feeding into their narrative. And so the choice you have isn't trying to get rid of Islam or decrease the amount of Islam or any particular religion, but in the way you do it, rather than decreasing Islam as a whole, you decrease the moderates, you weaken the moderates, and you increase and strengthen the Salafists and so on.
I mean, I think at this point, seeing as we've got to point 2 or 3 or something, and that this really is almost a discussion of pedantry, that maybe we should jettison this and actually move on to real issues. Does that sound
Well,
reasonable?
I actually, well, I mean, we can move on certainly, but
In other words,
I do actually think you were rather unfair in your Crusader House analogy, and perhaps we can leave it there. Yes.
In what sense?
Right. I think right. All I said was I think for the reasons I gave, I think you were unfair to Part 51 in the way you tried to make a comparison with Crusader House.
May I offer a summary, and then you can say if you agree with it. That the name Cordova was chosen by folks who didn't actually have a good feel for how this would echo around America. It seemed good to those who actually sort of thought about it, but you know, not all good ideas pan out. So in other words, it would in some ways be like, you know, if you thought that, you know, the term Crusader for your little sect of Christianity or whatever was a completely benign term, and you know, it sounds great behind closed doors and everything, and then once you actually go public with it, you know, you start realizing, well, this can actually be made to sound pretty bad.
Yeah, and they the reason it was made to sound bad by people who were opposed to them, and they did actually, oh, pardon me, change the name of the place because they realised it was offending people, or people were claiming to be offended by it. I'd say that's a fair summary of the situation.
Okay. Yeah. So if I would, so let's just say that this is a population. And I'm going to say this is a scale of sort of religiosity here. So, and I'm going to do this for Islam. Right? So this is all the people who believe in Muhammad, Allah, whatever. People that we might call Islam. And, you know, over on this side you've got the sort of people who don't really care about eating pork or any of that thing. Then I'm going to guess somewhere in the middle here you've got the people who pray 5 times a day. And then, you know, it's exaggerated here for show, but you get on to the people who think their religion gives them, you know, the right to, you know, apply their censorship to the rest of the world, to kill people, and so on. Do you think this is a reasonable appraisal of what Islam would look like? I mean, I'm not interested in the fine details of the model.
I'd make 2 comments. One is, I'm not sure the normal distribution is appropriate.
Fine, Lorentzian, Gaussian, whatever, it doesn't really greatly matter. But it is a distribution something like this.
I think it's more likely to be, to have 2 or 3 peaks to it.
Fine, no problem with that.
Yeah, okay, and the other thing is you've sort of got, I think, 2 axes of extremism and moderation. And I'm not sure how they interrelate. One is in what they would like to achieve, and one is in how they would set out to achieve it. So if you've got 2 axes that are orthogonal, with minus being moderate, and plus being extreme.
Yes.
One axis is yeah, I'll go with that.
Okay. Now I've drawn another curve there, and I've drawn it sort of translated a little. I'm not sure whether this is going to stage left or whatever, but and I'm going to call this one Christianity, and it's a similar shaped curve, right? And I would say that it's shifted this way. I mean, the one that you do know is that there are less Christians who are willing to kill people for religious reasons, you know, burn down embassies, whatever. There are less, if you like, highly motivated people in Christianity than there are in in Christianity than there are in Islam. Would you agree with that?
Across the world, or in the US?
across the world, summation of world population.
Uh-huh.
So what you really want to do over time is either shift this curve or diminish the amount of this group here. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, populations have what you would call plasticity over time. So, for instance, there was a time, you scroll Europe back a few hundred years when Christianity was over here. That there were people took religion more seriously. I mean, you've seen these maps of religious distributions in the world, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
See if we can actually get some of these up here. So in this case, I've got Islam on the top here, which is, the thing that you notice almost instantly when you start looking at these maps is Islam is very localized, relatively, right? If you compare the spreads of the populations, there's, the countries that are Islam heavy tend to be in the 90+% range, whereas the Christian countries tend to be more grey, yeah? And what's the other thing? Yeah, I mean, so just based on this, do you have any, obviously the religions have different attributes, different profiles, if you like, yeah? What do you think is the key factors that determine this distribution?
Did you say key factor or key factors?
Key factors.
Well, that's a range of things that I was going to come on to later, but certainly we can jump forward a little bit. Let's see. Okay. The headers that I gave for this are path dependency, cultural dominance of the West, brain drain, rentier states, Western imperialism in the modern period, older Western imperialism, the role of culture, the role of religion, and the interplay between the above.
And you think that is the prime reason why Islam is either mostly black or white, whereas the Christian ones are more diffuse? You think that those factors apply over the whole world? You don't think these are actually related to the way that the people actually practice the religion?
I think that the way people practice the religion is part of it, but I think that some of the features that lead to what society looks like in the Islamic world are what I just mentioned.
So you don't.
Well, let me ask you a question, Thunderfoot.
Right.
When you were, how have you controlled for other factors? What other factors have you considered in this?
Well, this is the thing when you're dealing with populations, is you're dealing with over-defined problems, right? So you have to actually make your decisions, your models. If you don't have a predictive model, then to a degree you've got nothing to really add here. You need to form a predictive model. And the thing about predictive models of societies and populations is you have to do it with diminished data. There isn't enough data to actually to absolutely define a solution, and if there was, we wouldn't even be having this discussion. So it's really now a question about model forming. Now, what I mean by
Go on.
what I mean by over-constrained is, or over-defined, is if you know there is a solution in parameter space, right? You might know, for instance, that it's not in this bit. You might know that it's not in this bit, right? And you might know that it's not in this bit. You don't know what the solution is, right? The solution might be a function, or it might be a point. You don't know what it is, but you know the region that it's in. Now, when you're dealing with societies, it's almost the diametric opposite of this, that you have almost no data whatsoever to actually form your models on. And so you have to base them on very simple things, like, for instance, this, okay? Where you have, if you like, very few pieces of data that you can actually put to actually create a model. You say, well, I think it's going to be a sort of normal population distribution. You know that there are more folks who are likely to engage in sort of radical activity in the Islamic population than the Christian one. Right? And from that, you can construct these very coarse-grained models. Right? Now, if you don't construct a coarse-grained model and decide, you know that these things are plastic, you know they can change over time, and you know something about the dynamics of the plasticity of these things, right? So you need to actually decide, well, what are the attributes of Islam that you want to diminish, and what are the best ways to do that?
Okay, I'm going to respond to that now. Okay, what I understand that to mean is that you haven't tried to accommodate, you haven't looked at economic factors, cultural factors, you haven't looked at the history of the place, you've just gone for religion, and you've looked to see if religion is the factor there. I haven't seen you do a test on it. Skeptical Engineer, as I said, did do that test.
Yes.
I suggest, as I said, if you haven't watched it, you watch the video, and that religion is part of it, or Islam is part of it, but it's not all of it.
It comes down to identifying.
Right, hang on, Thunderf00t. So you haven't tried to look at economics. You said that there isn't the data out there.
That is.
Let's see.
For the model that I am forming here, I am trying to at the moment determine, right? I've got a map of the world. I've got a load of data here about the distributions of Islam and Christianity. These are two different religions.
This is
right?
the thing, Thunderf00t.
And are you saying that all of these, the reason
gone in with the assumption that it's Islam? Okay, that's fair enough. You can do that and say, let's test this hypothesis.
Fine.
I haven't seen the null hypothesis, the alternative hypothesis from you. I haven't seen you do the statistical work. You've just said that
I just told you you can't. It's an over-defined system.
Hang on. In some areas that's true. But I'm looking at the data sets at the moment from the World Bank, just for starters. Economic data sets there are enormous. We've got details on all sorts of information about it. Now, there are gaps. It's not perfect, but we can make a bloody good start. And you haven't even made the attempt. Now, answer this question, Thunderf00t. What effect do you think that the rentier state phenomenon has had on the development of the greater Middle Eastern area?
That what? So you're talking about what? Saudi, Iran, Iraq? And a few of the others, Qatar and whatever?
No, the greater Middle East, Iran to the Atlantic.
Iran to the Atlantic. Are these
No,
guys right?
The Maghreb, the Mashrek.
I thought the rentier states were mostly the oil-rich ones.
Yes, and I'm asking you to make a comparison.
So it is just sort of Saudi, Iran, Iraq, and a few others around it that have the oil.
Yes, and I'm asking you to compare that to the other states.
Well, I'm not really seeing a change in the rentier states in the Islamic populations here.
Yes, but I'm asking you to look at something beyond that. I'm asking you to look at the economy.
Well,
I'm looking at
not what I'm trying to
develop.
Landon,
I'm asking you.
Landon, I started with this map for a reason, and the reason is that there is a very clear pattern with Islam that you don't see with Christianity. Could
you bring up the same chart for Hinduism, please?
No, because I didn't print it out for Hinduism.
Yep, enough said.
What? No, Landon. Right. This is all about trying to establish: is it sensible to propose that there are properties to the religion that cause this pattern rather than this one?
Okay, that is the number of people in the particular territory who subscribe to that particular religion. Yeah.
Yeah. And what you find is that with Islam, you have a very high proportion of countries where it is dominantly Islam. It is there is very little non-inhomogeneity within those populations. Okay, so you've. In other words, the Islamic countries tend to be mostly black or white.
What you've shown is if I'm correct, is that Muslim countries Islamic countries tend to be very highly Muslim, whereas other countries tend to be less so.
Whereas if you
Christian country has more other religions in it.
Yeah.
Okay, and what about Hinduism?
I told you, I'm not discussing Hinduism. I'm identifying.
I'm bringing it up.
Okay, what do you know about Hinduism?
Well, I don't know, not a lot.
Well, why did you bring it up?
Because the point I'm trying to make here, Thunderfoot, is that it looks to me very much like you've gone out and with this idea that
yes, based on the very coarse-grained observations that you can make.
Okay, yes, all right. Muslim countries have a lot of Muslims in them.
No, that's not the observation, Landon. That is not the observation.
Now, I haven't seen you do the hypothesis testing here. All I can see there is a chart that looks at number of Muslims in the Muslim countries. You haven't tried to deal with the economics. You haven't tried to deal with other social factors. You haven't tried to deal with imperialism. You haven't tried to deal with things like rentier states. Do you think that they have an effect?
No, London. This would be like saying, well, all right, you know there's global warming, but you've not looked at the correlations to pirate ships. You've not looked at the correlation to number of mosques built or whatever. You can kick the ball into the long grass as much as you want, right? But the bottom line is these charts contain information, right? And the piece of information that I take off this is the Muslim countries have a very, very high propensity to be black or white, right? Much more so than the Christian countries, right? Okay. I see this as a property of the religion. And if I were to propose a mechanism, I would say that there are aspects of the Islamic religion, as it is currently practiced in this black area here, which you can fairly easily draw a circle around on the map, right? There are aspects of the practice of the religion that make it congenial to producing almost completely Islamic countries.
Right, Thunderfoot, I'd like to say something.
I would propose, if I were to propose something here...
Thunderfoot, would you listen, please? I'm actually quite annoyed at what you just did. Now, I happen to be a political science type person.
Yeah.
And you have just you've just said that I'm debating in bad faith, basically, by saying that the issues about rentier states and so on are like the stuff in the Flying Spaghetti Monster. Now, let me ask you a simple question: have you tried to allow for economic factors in the social status of the country?
I don't think it's important. You can see, there is a pattern that you can see here, and it doesn't correlate to rentier states. We've done this, Landon.
You do realise that rentier states spread across regions, Thunderfoot?
Yes, and we agreed that it was mostly the oil-rich countries. This pattern goes across basically the entire Islamic world. Right? You have said, have I looked for a correlation? It's on the map, Landon, right?
Okay, look, what you're doing here is you picked up the map and that doesn't tell you anything about the nature of Islam in the country. All that's saying is that there are a lot of Muslims in those countries.
No,
okay?
That's not the observation that I'm making. The observation that I'm making is that when you compare, right? So, let me actually draw this so we're actually clear on what I'm actually, what's the point that I'm making. Let me think. I want to draw this. Yes, okay. Right? That if you were to take a look at your average Islamic country, it is almost entirely Islamic. Right? If you were to do this with another religion, the one that I've highlighted is Christianity, you don't see this pattern. They're much less prone to have this overwhelming Islamic population. Right?
Can I confirm that you have only compared Islam and Christianity?
Correct.
So how do you know that Islam is the outlier? How would you know that Christianity isn't the outlier?
Well, we're actually discussing Islam. I mean,